Vanessa Caldwell paused at the tall wrought-iron entrance of Oak Ridge Memorial Park, letting the gate settle shut behind her with a quiet metallic click. The afternoon light caught the silver in her hair, turning it almost white for a second, like the sun was trying to soften her edges. At 62, Vanessa had everything money could buy: a penthouse with a view that made visitors gasp, a driver who never spoke unless spoken to, a calendar full of charity galas, and closets that looked like boutique showrooms. But she didn't have the one thing she would have traded it all for. Her daughter Lila had been gone for 3 years, and the emptiness never really left. Vanessa came every Tuesday at exactly 3 p.m. She told herself it was because the park was quiet at that hour. No weekend crowds, no morning joggers, no families stopping by with fresh bouquets, just the wind moving through bare branches, the distant hum of traffic beyond the trees, and the soft crunch of gravel under her heels. It was the kind of silence that felt honest. She followed the familiar path toward Lila's grave, her gaze fixed ahead the way it always was, like looking too closely at anything might invite more pain in. Her hands were gloved, her coat was expensive, her posture was perfect. Control had become her only form of survival. But halfway down the row, something pulled her out of routine. Someone was already there. A man in a dark maintenance uniform was kneeling near Lila's headstone. Next to him sat a little girl, no more than 5 or 6, with long brown hair and a bright mustard yellow sweater that looked slightly too big for her. The child's small hands were clasped tightly in her lap. Her cheeks were wet. They were both crying quietly. Vanessa's stomach tightened, instinct rising like a shield. She quickened her pace, her heels tapping the stone walkway with sharper rhythm than she intended. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice cutting through the stillness. "What are you doing here?" The man flinched and looked up, startled. He was maybe mid-30s, with tired eyes that still somehow held kindness. His hands were rough, the kind that had been used hard by life and work. The little girl immediately grabbed his sleeve and pressed herself against him, frightened by Vanessa's tone. I'm sorry, ma'am," the man said quickly, wiping his face with the back of his wrist. "We didn't mean any disrespect. We can go right now." He started to rise, guiding the child up gently as if she might break, but Vanessa's eyes dropped to the base of the headstone and she froze. There were flowers there, not the elaborate arrangements she sometimes ordered out of habit and obligation, the ones delivered with ribbon and glossy cards. These were simple daisies and a few sprigs of greenery, placed with care, not carelessness. Beside them was a folded piece of paper, a child's drawing, stick figures holding hands under a rainbow, a sun in one corner, and in careful, uneven letters, "Thank you for being nice to us." Vanessa's throat tightened, so suddenly she could barely breathe. "Wait," she said, softer now. "Please, I'm not trying to be cruel. Her voice wavered. She swallowed. "I want to understand. How do you know my daughter?" The man hesitated. He looked down at the girl, who had tucked her face into his hip as if she wanted to disappear. He took a careful breath. "My name is Caleb Ward," he said quietly, "and this is my daughter Maya." Vanessa stared at him, searching his face for an explanation. Caleb's voice dropped even lower, like he was afraid the truth might shatter the air around them. "Your daughter, Lila. She was the kindest person I ever met." Hearing her daughter's name in a stranger's mouth, spoken with real affection, made Vanessa's eyes sting immediately. She tried to hold it back. She didn't like crying in front of people. She didn't even like crying when she was alone, but grief doesn't always ask for permission. "Please," Vanessa said, gesturing toward a bench under a leafless oak nearby. Would you sit with me, tell me about her?" Caleb looked surprised, as if he didn't expect to be invited into this world, this polished private world of a woman who looked like she had never needed anything. But he nodded. They walked together to the bench. Maya climbed into her father's lap, still watching Vanessa with cautious, wide eyes. Caleb took another breath. When he spoke again, it came out carefully, like he was opening a door he hadn't opened in a long time. "I work nights as a custodian at Riverview Medical Center," he began. "3 years ago, my wife Elena got sick." Vanessa's heart sank. She didn't interrupt. "It was cancer," Caleb continued. "Aggressive. We didn't have much. No savings, no family close by. And our insurance, it didn't cover what we needed. I was working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on." Maya's small fingers twisted the edge of her sweater, like she'd heard this story too many times. Caleb's voice thickened. "Lila was my wife's nurse." Vanessa's breath caught. She'd known Lila worked at a hospital. She'd known she cared deeply, but she didn't know she took care of Elena for 6 months, Caleb said. But it wasn't just medical care. Lena stayed after her shift ended. She'd sit with Elena when the room got too quiet. She'd talk to her like she mattered, like she was still herself, even on the days she didn't feel like it. Vanessa closed her eyes and pictured it instantly. Lila leaning over a bedside, smoothing a blanket, smiling that gentle smile she'd always had since childhood. When Elena was too weak to speak, Caleb went on, Layla would read to her. Just normal things, little stories, sometimes a chapter from a book Elena liked, sometimes silly articles off her phone just to make her laugh. Vanessa pressed her gloved fingers to her mouth. That sounds like her, she whispered, almost to herself. Caleb nodded. One night Lila found out I couldn't afford childcare. I was bringing Maya to the hospital and leaving her in the waiting area while I cleaned. I hated it, but I didn't have a choice. Maya shifted on his lap, eyes down. And then, Caleb said, Lila started watching Maya during those nights. She brought coloring books, stuffed animals, toys from home. She made Maya feel safe during the scariest time of our lives. Vanessa's voice trembled. I didn't know, she whispered. She never told me. Caleb gave a sad smile. That was Lila, he said. She didn't do it for recognition. She did it because she couldn't stand seeing people suffer alone. For a moment the only sound was wind in the branches. Then Maya spoke, so softly Vanessa almost missed it. Miss Lila gave me this. She reached into a small backpack at her feet and pulled out a worn stuffed rabbit, one ear slightly bent, the fabric faded from too many hugs. Maya held it out carefully, like she was offering something sacred. She said, When I miss my mummy, I should hug Mr. Bunny and remember, love doesn't go away. Vanessa's tears broke free. They slid down her cheeks without permission, warm against cold air. After Lila had died in a car accident, Vanessa had gone through her daughter's apartment alone. She'd found children's books, coloring supplies, little toys. At the time she hadn't understood. Now it made sense. Caleb's voice lowered. Elena passed away 3 years ago, he said. 2 weeks later, we heard about Lelena's accident. He paused, swallowing hard. Maya and I were heartbroken all over again. We didn't have family at the funeral. We didn't think we'd be welcome, but we needed somewhere to say goodbye, somewhere to thank her. Vanessa stared at him, stunned. You've been coming here, she began, all this time. Caleb nodded. Usually early in the morning, he said, before my shift. Sometimes we bring flowers when we can afford them. Sometimes Maya just brings a drawing. Maya nodded solemnly, as if she had a job she took seriously. It helps, Caleb added. It helps Maya. It helps me. Vanessa looked at them. This man who cleaned floors for a living, who had lost his wife, who was raising a child alone, and who still found time to honor someone else's memory. And she realized something painfully clear. While she had been mourning inside a big quiet home, drowning in loneliness with every comfort money could provide, these two had been keeping Lila's spirit alive with the little they had. Vanessa's voice softened. I'm sorry I spoke to you so harshly, she said. I've been so lost in my own grief that I forgot. Lila didn't belong only to me. She touched so many lives. Caleb shook his head gently. You don't have to apologize, he said. Losing a child, I can't imagine anything harder. They sat in silence, watching sunlight filter through branches, forming trembling patterns on the ground. Then Vanessa took a careful breath. Caleb, she said, would you and Maya like to come to dinner this week? Caleb looked at her like he hadn't heard correctly. I'd love to hear more stories about Lila, Vanessa continued. And I think she would want us to know each other, to not be strangers. Caleb's eyes filled, but he blinked quickly. We'd be honored, ma'am. Vanessa shook her head gently. Please call me Vanessa. Maya tugged at her father's sleeve. Daddy, she whispered, can I show Miss Vanessa my pictures? Caleb's throat tightened. Of course, sweetheart. Maya opened her folder and carefully pulled out drawing after drawing, dozens of them. Lila reading books. Lila in a nurse's uniform with a little badge. Lila smiling so wide it looked like the sun. Lila holding Maya's hand. Vanessa flipped through them slowly, her heart aching and healing at the same time. These are beautiful, Maya, Vanessa said, voice shaking. Maya's eyes brightened. She was my friend. Vanessa swallowed hard. Would you like to see photos of Lila when she was a little girl? Vanessa asked. Around your age? Maya's mouth fell open. Really? Vanessa nodded. I have albums full of pictures, and I still have Lila's favorite books from when she was young. She paused, then said the next words like a promise. I think she'd want you to have them. Over the following weeks, Tuesday afternoons changed. Instead of walking those paths alone, Vanessa began meeting Caleb and Maya near Lila's grave. They would leave fresh daisies. Maya would place a new drawing. Caleb would say a few quiet words. And then they would go back to Vanessa's home for tea and cookies, simple things that somehow felt like miracles. Vanessa shared stories of Lila's childhood, her first bike, her stubborn kindness, the way she used to rescue stray animals and bring them home like treasures. Caleb shared stories from those hospital nights, Lila sitting in a chair that squeaked every time she moved, pretending she didn't notice just to keep Elena smiling, Lila helping Maya color inside the lines, Lila teaching a little girl how to be brave. Slowly, Vanessa's large, quiet house filled with laughter again. Not loud laughter, not party laughter, but the kind that feels like life returning. Vanessa helped Caleb enroll Maya in a better school. She set up a college fund, not as charity but as something Lila would have wanted, a continuation of her kindness rather than an act of pity. In return, Caleb helped with small repairs around Vanessa's home. He fixed a sticking door, replaced a broken hinge, tightened a loose railing, and without ever intending to, he taught Vanessa something she had forgotten. Wealth wasn't measured in dollars, it was measured in the connections we build, the people we don't abandon, the love we keep circulating. One afternoon, as Vanessa poured tea, Maya looked up and said casually, like it was the most natural truth in the world, "Grandma Vanessa, can I have another cookie?" The room went still. Vanessa felt her breath catch. Caleb looked horrified. "Maya," but Vanessa lifted a hand, stopping him. She stared at Maya's small face, so open, so trusting, and realized her heart wasn't breaking from the word. It was healing. Vanessa knelt down beside her and brushed a strand of hair from Maya's cheek. "You can call me that," Vanessa whispered, "if you want." Maya grinned and hugged her stuffed rabbit tightly. One Tuesday, nearly 6 months after their first meeting, Vanessa stood at Lila's grave with Caleb and Maya. The air was colder now, the trees were bare, but they weren't alone. Maya placed her newest drawing at the base of the headstone. It showed 4 stick figures. 2 were in the sky with wings, Elena and Lila smiling like guardians. Below were Caleb and Grandma Vanessa holding hands, and connecting everyone was a bright golden thread drawn carefully from one side of the page to the other. Vanessa reached out and touched the headstone softly. "Thank you, Layla," she whispered. "Thank you for bringing them to me." As they walked back toward the gates together, Maya slipped her small hand into Vanessa's, and in that moment, Vanessa finally understood what Layla had always known. The greatest gift we can give is kindness, and the greatest legacy is love that continues, long after we're gone. Vanessa had come to a grave looking for her daughter, and she found what her daughter had left behind, a reminder that family isn't only blood. It's the hearts we touch, the lives we change, and the grace that arrives, sometimes wearing a maintenance uniform, holding a little girl's hand, carrying flowers to a place that used to feel empty. And for the first time in 3 years, Vanessa didn't feel truly alone.